What going on, guys? Brad here, and welcome to a new video on substance painting. Now, I wanted to do this video, this beginner's tutorial video on substance painter for quite a while, but I've never really had the opportunity to do it, should I say. Now, if you've been around my channel for a while, you will know that I've done a few videos on substance painter before, but they're just time lapses. So, you know, I record myself, record what I'm doing, I speed it up, and I put some music in the background, right? Now, those are good just to show the progression of what I do to texture a model, but it's not very good if you're looking for a tutorial, because it's so quick that even if you slow it down to, like, you know, 0.25 speed on YouTube, you're not going to get anywhere, because it's just, the frame rate is just going to be ridiculous. So what I thought I'd do today is actually texture a model and show you the beginner's way of how I do texture. So go through all the basic tools and show you how I'm going to, like, what the end result is going to be and how I go at getting the end result. So what I'm going to show on the screen now is the end result of what we're hoping to get by the end of this. Well, what we are going to get, because that's a screenshot of what I'm going to finish the recording with. So yeah, so we're going to start off. It's what we're going to, again, you can see from the photo, it's a 320-second company clone trooper helmet from Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 3. Now, I'm only doing a helmet because I don't want this video to go on for ages, and in all fairness, if I do anything more than the helmet, the procedures are still going to be exactly the same as what I would do for like the rest of the body. So there's not really much point to me doing it, because I'll just be repeating myself and there's no point in that. So I'm just going to do the helmet for today. If I do the whole clone in the future, I'll do it as a time lapse and I will upload it to YouTube, but I don't think I will. But we'll see. Again, I don't know if I might get bored. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go file, then new. Also, if you're something I completely forgot to say, if you are new around here and you haven't already, we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers by October 2021. So if you are new around here and you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. That'd be great. Thank you. Now, with that out of the way, so we go to file. Let's just go click out of that. So we go file, new, opens up this window. Now, template, keep it as PBR. So PBR stands for physics-based rendering. Keep it at PBR metallic roughness. I do anyway. You can change it to, like, roughness alpha blend if you want to. There's various different like templates you can use, even if you're using Unreal Engine 4. But the thing is, like, I've used this template for, like, Sketchfab, exporting and re-importing back into Substance Painter, Unreal Engine, and 3ds Max, and Blender as well. This basically works for everything, because when you go to render it out, you can render it out in the specific maps that you want. So there's not really much point in changing it. I mean, if you want to change it, then by all means go ahead, but I personally haven't seen any difference in doing that. Document resolution, change it to 4K. That's just what I do. You can have it as, like, so we go, like, you know, 128. That's 720p. That's 480p. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember what goes below 480p, but that's 720p. That's 1080. That's 2K, and that's 4K. Right. So I'm gonna go 4K. I'll keep on DirectX 12. Sorry, not DirectX. So it's just DirectX. I never really use OpenGL, but again, if you have a situation where you need to use OpenGL, that's where you do it. I always stick with DirectX. I've never seen any problems with doing that. I always hit compute tangent space per fragment. It does not always needed, but in the cases where it is needed, it just helps make your model look a bit better. But I always keep it on because it doesn't harm the model if it doesn't need it. But if it does need it, then that's what it's there for. And I just keep import cameras and auto unwrap on, just as default, because again, import cameras, if there's no cameras in the scene, it's got nothing to import. Also unwrap, if you haven't unwrapped your model, it'll do it for you, but in my experience, it only works with basic models because it's only in beta and it's not as, like, heavily developed as it possibly could be. But again, if you've already got UVs that you've unwrapped in, let's say, Blender or 3ds Max, like I've got with this model's already been unwrapped. If it's already been unwrapped, it's not going to do anything, because it can't unwrap something that's already been done. UDIMs, I don't exactly know what this is. I don't ever bother with it. I've never seen a problem keep turning it on. I've never seen any difference turning it off. So again, if there's a situation where you need to turn it on, then turn it on. But other than that, I've never really seen a problem with keeping it off. So now the file. So we go, this is where we actually choose the model in which we want to texture. So we click select, and this is where I've saved my clone mesh helmet. Yeah, it's on my desktop. Again, it'll be wherever you save it. I just like keeping it on my desktop because it's easy to access. So click OK. Show up, that's the directory of it. And then click OK, and it'll import the model into Substance Painter, right? So you've got two ways that you can texture. First of all, this is the UV that you can texture, or you can texture directly onto the 3D model. Now, I texture directly onto the 3D model most times. There are certain things, especially when it comes to things like these little bits here, and I'll get to all these little like notches here, and I'll get to it later why they are they're a bit easier to do in the UV view. But again, I'll get to that later. But you can choose whichever one you want to paint on, and it does the exact same. Just this is a 3D model and this is the 2D view of the model, but it works exactly the same way. So first thing we're going to do before we even start painting is if we go to texture set settings and then go to also your layout might be slightly different to mine. So we've got texture set list, which shows you the different like parts of the model. Now this is not model specific for anybody who's like, it's not model specific, it's actually texture specific. So in 3ds Max, when you put the texture, the base texture for the clone trooper of any kind of color onto the clone trooper's helmet, that is just one subcategory as far as Substance Painting is concerned. If you then happen to, let's say, change the visor to a different color black, the visor will then be as a separate part, because Substance Painter is color or texture specific as far as the subcategory is concerned, not necessarily model specific. So do keep aware of that. I got a bit confused because most 3D model software like 3ds Max, Blender and whatnot are all model specific. Substance Painter's texture specific, so just be careful of that. So this is where you see the different parts of your model. Obviously there's only got the one helmet, so that's just the one thing that's there. Properties, we'll get to that a little bit later. You've got all your different like maps and like roughness and things like that, but again we'll get to all that later. Layers is where you stick the different layers in for the different colors, so should you need it. The texture set settings, this is where you can add various different like extra color maps or extra like texture channels, such as ambient occlusion, emissive, glossiness, opacity, specular, what have you. But again, I'm not going to use any of those today because I don't need it. I'll get to that I'll get to that later. So what you need to do, you need to click bake mesh maps, change the output size to 4K. You can change it to 8K, but in my experience, especially with models that I've not got 8K textures, like this is all 4K textures, I'm pretty sure with the Battlefield models. Even if they're not, I just bake it at 4K anyway, because it's not gonna, I always do 4K anyway, regardless of what I use. But I've never really seen the benefit of using 8K. Again, when something like when Halo Infinite comes out and things like that, maybe if you want to do texturing on those models, maybe 8K might become a useful tool. But Substance Painting is just a bit ahead of its time as far as like development's concerned. But I always keep it as 4K. If you want to make it lower, then by all means, but just bear in mind the higher the resolution, the longer it's going to take to bake the maps. Turn off ID map because we don't actually need that for this particular tutorial. And again, I've never really seen the need to use ID maps personally, and the only other thing you need to change is change anti-aliasing to 2x2. Now, you can do 4x4, 8x8, but just beware that as far as system resources on your PC is concerned, the more you go, even just going 2x2, it gets very expensive really quickly, and it does slow down your PC, and it will take a lot longer should you go any higher than 2x2. And again, for this particular model, like I did a test one on this just so I know what I could do for today's video. I tried it on 4x4 and then 8x8. I didn't notice a difference personally, so keep it on 2x2. Again, if you've got like a really high quality model, like say like when Halo Infinite comes out and those models from that game then come out, maybe 4x4 and 8x8 might prove to be useful, but just bear in mind, if you are going to use it any higher than 2x2, it is going to get expensive on your system's resources very, very quickly. So bake default mesh maps, and then maybe if you've got more than one model that you've got, or more than one model part that you've got to texture, there may be an option to bake all maps. Bake all maps if that is the case, because then you don't have to do it one by one, you can just do them all at once. But because there's only one model here, I've only got this option, so I'm going to click bake. Now again, this shouldn't take too long because again I'm only doing 2x2 anti-aliasing and there's only one model to texture. Whereas in comparison, the Halo Master Chief model that I textured, if you remember the time-lapse one that I did, that was on 2x2, but because the model was so complex, because it's a proper Fortnite model, that model was so complex that that took about 5 minutes to make. Like, that took about like 10 seconds. That Master Chief model took about 5 minutes. So yeah, it's a bit, so that model took quite a while to make. I think the actual texture of that model took like I think it's like 6 hours, 6-7 hours worth of actual footage in and of itself. So that's quite a lot of footage that I had to edit down. I was quite impressed I managed to do it in about 40, comprise it down to about 40 minutes. So first things first. So we've got a various different number of things here. Now there's a lot of them that we don't actually need to worry about. So that's obviously the remove selected layer. So you delete that, gets rid of the layer. That's a new folder. That's a new smart material. So if you've got, let's say, you can add your smart materials here that you want to add. Now I prefer to, if I am going to use smart materials, which I don't always do, but if I'm going to use smart materials, I prefer to drag and drop it. But that's just another way of doing it. So if you want to do that, then that's particularly your choice. It's just like up to your own interpretation of what you want to use. This is adding a fill layer. So you add it's basically just a block color layer, which you can then change the base color of. I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to change the actual color to red because I'm going to do the next few tools I'm going to show you actually with this fill layer. Then we've got a add layer. Again, I'm going to add that as well. I'm also going to change the color to black. Again, it's just to make it easier for when I'm showing you these tools up here a bit later. What's this one? This is a generator. No, this is an add mask tool. So you can add a white mask, black mask, bitmap mask to the specific layer that's selected. Again, I personally prefer to right click and then do it this way, but that's just, again, that's whatever you think is easier. That's just my personal way of doing it. Then you can add various different effects. Again, this is just another way of doing it. I prefer to, this is quite strange because I actually prefer to add effects through this top panel, because whereas if you right click, you can actually see the same options down there. So it's a bit weird just the way I like to do things. But whereas like if it's, let's say, add in masks, I do it by right clicking, but if it's effects, I like doing it over here. So again, it's up to personal preference really. So now what I want to do is I want to show you, no, I can do it with that one. So first of all, we've got our paint layer. Now the paint layer is literally, it is what it says on the tin. You do that, you paint it, right? Now, then you've got your erase layer. Do it like that. Or what you could do instead of using the erase layer, which I actually never use the erase tool. What I do instead is, if I go into properties, I can't actually do it with a layer. So if you are using just a basic empty layer, you actually have to use the erase tool you actually have to use an erase tool to erase it. What I do, and this is the reason why I use a lot of fill layers. If you're using a fill layer, let's say we go add black mask, it then completely clears that texture. But what you can then do is you can then draw that on as a mask, right? Now the reason why I like doing that instead is because if I happen to make a mistake, what I can then do is I can go to properties and then go to this grayscale option, click this or just drag it over to 0, and then it basically erases it itself. Now that's good in of itself, but what you can also do is if you move to, let's say I've put 0.5 in here, so it's about halfway there, it takes away or it paints it as half color, which I think is pretty cool, especially if you're trying to make some nice blood effects on a helmet. Like if you do it right, you can actually make it look really quite cool. So that's what that grayscale one's there for. What you can also, now this one is the projection map, so I'm just going to go over to this side here. Now I don't ever use this very much, but when I do, I use it for like, printing like logos onto helmets and things like that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag and drop these into here, just quickly. Now when you import, I literally just dragged and dropped it into the shelf here, and it could be in any subcategory. It doesn't matter. But if it's a texture, most of them you'll be importing it's going to be textures. So just click undefine and then just click texture for each of them, and click import resources to project, and then click import, and then import just like that. Now there's a reason why I'm doing that now, but that'll become apparent in a minute. Well, actually no, I'll do it now actually. So because we're on projection anyway, so if you click projection, this screen will show up in your face. Now with projections, you actually can't do it on fill layers. So if I make another empty layer and then go to projection, if you then go to properties and then stick, I think you've got to stick the actual texture into base color, it'll then show projection on the screen. right? So then what you can then do is you can then paint what you're projecting onto the model in which you're texturing, just like that, which I think looks pretty cool. Like, again, that looks completely stupid in and of itself, but the effect is cool because it's you know, if you're, let's say, printing like, let's say, the Republic logo onto the side of a helmet or onto the back of a character model's head, like, that could look pretty cool. And instead of, like, you know, trying your best to be as intricate as possible to draw it perfectly, just download the PNG model, or just download the PNG image, or even a JPEG image if you want to, and just texture it. It's as simple as that. It's really quite cool. So the next one is the polygon tool. Now this tool is the one that I use an awful lot, and I'll tell you what, it's a lifesaver. So what essentially it is I gotta make sure I'm on the right grayscale. It's down there. It's also up there for polygon tool as well. Now if you click, it actually fills in the polygons you click, right, which is absolutely insane. And especially if you haven't got a very steady hand like me, like I'm using a mouse, I can't really use a drawing tablet. I really need to learn. But if you're really not very stable on your hand, you'll see me use this tool a bit later on. If you're not very stable on your hands, you can actually like fill it in quite evenly through polygons. Now what you've got to be careful of if you are going to do this is, like, Battlefront 2 models, as you can see, the polygons are quite neat and tidy together because it is such a high quality model. However, some models are not as high quality, and if you've made a model yourself, or even some Garry's Mod models that I've used before, haven't got very good polygons. So you've got to use polygons as well as your paint tools, which is a bit of a pain, but it's just the way that it is. It's just because it's a bad model. Also, something else that I forgot to mention with the paint tool, if you want to make a straight line, so let's say I just change this to 1, for example. 1. Obviously it changes the size of the paintbrush. If you click shift and drag, you can actually drag a straight line to actually where you want to go. So like make like, I wouldn't say a perfect triangle, but a straight triangle, and all you've got to do is click shift and drag and it does it for you. So that's pretty cool. If you're trying to make, like, just trace a straight line and your polygon tool doesn't actually work for you. This is the smudge tool. Again, it does what it says on the tin. It just smudges it. Again, which again, if you're trying to make like a blood effect, it actually looks pretty cool if you do it properly. I'm not doing it properly at all, but I think it looks pretty cool. Clone tool, again, I've never really seen the need to use this. I think it's just a case of, like, you know, you've got your that's the little box looking thing is where you're taking information from your paints and it onto somewhere else. Again, I've never really seen the need to use it personally, but again, that's up to you. Material picker, again, you can just click it and then just start painting with that exact same material. Do it again with somewhere down here, and then I can just start painting it off again. It doesn't work that way, but I've never really seen a particular need to use it. That's just for if you made a particularly nice material, you can share this to Substance Painter's website. That's for exporting to Photoshop, and that's also for updating your resources. Now, that's all of the basic parts of the excuse me, that's the most basic parts of the like Substance Painter's tools basically run down. Now, I apologize if that was a bit quick. You can go back and watch it again if you want to. But I want to get through this as quickly as possible because there's so much to do with this video that I don't want this video to drag on for ages. So as you can see, I just made a fill layer. Now the reason why I made a fill layer is because I always, when I paint, like, let's say Clone Trooper or even Stormtrooper or whatever it is, helmets from a game that already exists with those textures, I always put the textures on as a base to show what I'm texturing on. Now, obviously, as you can see, that's where the mouth guard goes, that's where the visor is, that's where the helmet part is. But it means that there's also less things for me to texture myself. So if I texture, if I stick this on, that already shows, like, that does 90% of the work for me. Now, obviously, there are certain parts I need to texture again and texture over, but we'll get to that a bit later. But it just adds sort of like a reference point for me, and also just adds less work for me to do if the texture itself looks pretty good anyway. And also by adding, like, if you change the values a bit with them and over, like, texture over some certain parts, you can make the model look pretty good anyway. So now this texture is actually, so as you see, we've got two different textures here, right? Now one's called CS and one's called CS Edit, right? Now there's a reason for this, right? I can't remember which one's actually which. The lighting's a bit naff, but so this is the actual edited one. I'm pretty sure. Now the reason why there's two different versions of this, right? Now you most probably can't see too much of a difference, but this one is ever so slightly more faded, and this one is a bit more like solid and a bit more better color. Or is that one the more faded one? Yeah, so this is the one that you normally rip out of Battlefront 2, and that one's the actual edited one. Now the reason why it's edited ever so slightly is because, as you can see, this one, it might look a little bit more detailed, but it's a bit more faded. Now that's because Battlefront 2's textures, by nature, when you export them, they export with a transparency layer. Now I'm going to overlay it onto the screen now how you get rid of the transparency layer. Literally all you do is export, as you go file export. You don't even need to do anything with the model itself, with the texture itself. You just import it into Photoshop or whatever your 3D application might be. I'm using Photoshop for this particular instance. You file export, and in the export menu there's a little checkbox for transparency. Uncheck that and then click export, and export it into a new file or over the top of the old one. It's just the way Substance Paint, it's just the way Battlefront 2 works. I don't see the point in that personally. Now, if you're using something like, if you're importing, say, Unreal Engine, or you're importing into 3ds Max or something, it's not a problem because, like Unreal Engine or Blender or 3ds Max or something, they all see through transparency layers. For some reason, Substance Painter won't do it. I don't know why. And also, if this is a NM layer, now that stands for metallic and normal, right? So you've got your normal map here. But this is actually what you export. Now, again, I'll show this on the screen now, but what you need to do is you need to import this into Photoshop, and you need to go filter 3D, I think, and then go to normal map and change the values. I think it's to 0.5 and 120 I've got it at to get this result. Now, it's not perfect, and you can play about with it a little bit and tinker it just to make it fit whatever needs you have, but I find that those values work perfectly fine for me. So that's how you get the actual base texture. So then if I stick, now the reason why I've got the actual base one here as well is because I'm not sure whether that actually has any impact on the roughness at all, really. Not a huge amount. So the edited one doesn't look so shiny, but again, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But I'm just going to stick the edited one on there just because it makes life easier. So again, normal map goes in there and metallic map goes in there. Now, if you're wondering why the metallic map actually exists and why I actually need to convert it, if I stick the metallic map into the normal map, it looks really off, and that's just because it's using metallic maps, metallic information as a normal. So that doesn't work, and that's why you get that problem. So that's why you need to convert it, because it doesn't actually work. The metallic map doesn't actually work in the normal. It doesn't actually like convert as depending on which like thing you put it in. So that's why you've got to change it. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to go texture fill layer, change this to a black texture, and then go to right click and click black mask. Now, what you can do is, now we'll get to why there's certain times where this works and certain times where it doesn't. So, if you fill up the roughness, or however many maps you've got, so normal, metallic, and roughness, as they are, like that with the original maps, what the textures that we're then going to be replacing, like this one here, like the texture doesn't look that great, so that's why we're going to be replacing it with this black layer here. Now, for things that are replacing the base textures, use these maps. Use these maps that we've got here. For anything where we're going to be like painting the actual face texture, I've also got the actual reference image on the screen now as well, if you wonder what that is. So, if you're using, so anything like paint or anything, because we're going to add extra effects on it, we want to make it look more or less rough or metallic or what have you. These maps are not going to work because they're all like exactly specific based off of the actual data from the model itself and the base textures. Whereas if we are actually going to repaint stuff from the actual original model itself, that's when using these is appropriate. So does that make sense? Hopefully. So what I'm going to do is if we go back onto our polygon tool, I can then start filling in these layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut ahead in the video until I've done this, and I'll be back once I have done it. Right guys, so I'm back. Now I finished doing that texture. Now as you can see, I was using the polygon tool there, and we can see we've got a lot of different like textured polygons that we don't actually want to have any color in it. Now that's just a thing that happens when you're using the polygon tool, and you've just got to be aware of that. What essentially happens is it might not work so much when you're using a drawing tablet, or maybe it's just because my hands are very steady. But if you drag and click quite quickly, as I was doing, I mean, you're going to see even quicker because you're watching it sped up. But if you happen to move your mouse ever so, you click it, you ever so slightly move it, you can actually get like polygon triangles showing in places you don't actually want them. And so you just got to be aware of that. It's not a major problem because you just change your grayscale to 0 and then just go and click them again, it gets rid of them. But it's just a bit of a nuisance that you just got to deal with. Now, that obviously it looks a bit block color. I'm going to add a metal edge wear effect later to make it look even better. But that's just to show you what I was trying to do. Now, if I was to do this myself, I would over texture the visor, and I would also over texture the teeth, and I would also over texture the blue little accents and make them a bit more emissive, as well as potentially these things here. But I'm not going to do that today because I'm just showing you the basics of what I'm trying to do and give you the basics. So again, if I was doing this myself, like this is probably only going to take me like an hour or something to actually do. It's probably going to take me about an hour and 20 minutes to actually record. But normally I'll probably spend like 3 hours or something on something like this, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, dependent, just because I like to get all the little details in. And also I'm a little bit, I would be less lazy, or maybe even just like because I'm not actually talking to myself, so maybe it might be even less time, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another fill layer, and we're going to start making the actual face marking. So what I'm going to do, I'll move this up to actually just a little corner so we get the most saturated and highest colored color that we can get, and then we're just going to move this up until we get like a nice little orangey looking color, and I think that looks okay. Again, we can change it later, but for the sake of doing this now, I'm just going to leave that. So we're going to go black mask again, get rid of it all. Now, again, with markings, you can add things like the normal map and that in it later, in it as well. But because I'm just going to, let's just put all of this in, and see what it looks like. If I just get rid of the remove mask. Okay, that doesn't look that good, and that's not going to look good as far as what should you call it? It's not going to look good as far as markers are concerned. So what you can do is you just try and ever so take certain bits out, but like, I mean, the roughness could probably stay there. If I put the normal in, that looks all right. But I prefer, if I'm doing like markings, I prefer to play about with the actual values myself, because it is a modified thing that I'm doing. So you can sort of play about with it, do what you want, but I'm just going to leave it like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that mask on, then turn on my polygon layer. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the base face markings. Now when I mean that, I'm not going to do any detail like texturing. So obviously you've got excuse me, you've got the like face plate here, which you can obviously texture, and then you've got the little crevice under the underneath that splits the actual visors from the actual helmet itself. But if you look under here, you've also got little crevices here that you can texture as well. And again, if I was doing this myself, like independently, I would make sure those crevices are actually filled up, because especially if you're going to use a 3D scene or something, you don't want to leave any room for people to complain like, oh, that's not texture, we missed that little bit. So you've got to try and get every little nook and cranny. But for the sake of this tutorial, there's no need in doing it. I just want to show you how I texture it. So again, it's simple as just like texturing the colors about. Now, another thing you can actually do that I want to show you, if you go to white mask, that'll fill in the entire thing again because it's a white mask. But if you go, but what you can then do is you can then get rid of things as well. So if you want to, let's say, have the entire model one color aside from certain parts, instead of texturing the entire model except for those specific things, you can change it to a white mask and then just deselect the specific parts in which you want it to not work with. I'm not going to do that here because while the helmet does have a lot of color on it, well, what I could actually do really is I could go like this and drag it all the way up to there. So then that does pretty much the entire helmet, and then all I've got to do is just like dot about with the I've just got to dot about and just fill in the little markings as and when we need it. But again, for things like the faceplate, it's not as more hassle than it's worth. So you just got to sort of think about whether that's actually good or not. But if you are going to do that, again, what you then need to do, because I can't well, what I could do is I can then go and do that and then start filling in this. Or what you could alternatively do, if you want to actually use a black mask for whatever reason as well, if you click duplicate layer and then change that to a black mask, you can then go and then texture up as you would do normally. So, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to do it this way because I think it will work all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the video. I'm not going to cut ahead in the video because it's just sped up. I'm just going to speed it up. That's also your autosave thing. For this model, it's not too much of an issue because the actual autosave, because the model's not huge, it's alright to let it to autosave because it only takes like literally like a split second. But if you've got like a huge model, like again, my Master Chief model that I did the time lapse on in a video, it literally every time it autosaved, it would just be autosaving for like 5-10 minutes because the model was so big. So in a way, it's a bit of a nuisance, but you can save yourself. Like having that on is going to could save yourself hours of work that if let's say you had a power cut or something, you've lost all that work, there's no way of getting it back. So again, I'm going to speed up in the video while I texture this segment of the face, and I'll be back once I have done it. Alright guys, so I'm back. Now, you saw me use a couple of different things I've already shown you there. Now, the one thing that I was going to use, but I didn't, and I'll explain why in a second, is this symmetry tool. Now, now I didn't showcase this earlier, and I kind of don't know why I did. I wish I had, but I'm going to do it now. So what this symmetry tool essentially does is, if I just get another, save messing up what I've already done, if I just get another block color layer, essentially what it does is when you paint on one side, it paints on the other side, right? And for the most part, normally it works quite well, right? So you can, let's say, like, draw something here, like draw a little circle here, and it'll show exactly the same on the other side. Now, that's all well and good, but however, if I look at this model just like on its front-facing view, and I just delete this, you can see that the line is not even. It's not directly in the center. It's a little bit standing off to the right-hand side. Now, you can change the actual position of it. So if I just go, let's say 1, wow, that's just moved it completely, hasn't it? But if I just go, let's say 0.5, that would change it to over there. Whereas if I set it to 0, it's directly back in the middle. Now, you can change it and adjust the values in decimal points so that it is 100% accurate if you want to. And again, if I was doing this myself to save myself time, I would absolutely do this myself, but the problem with that is that I haven't got time to do it now because there's literally no point. So We're just looking at my reference image now. Now the next thing we've got to do is we've got to do the markings on Ahsoka's markings on the helmet. So I'm going to turn this off for myself. Now, again, this symmetry tool, if it was actually accurate and it was actually directly dead center in the middle, it would be perfect for doing this, because that means that I can get, like, all I have to do is do it on one side and the rest of it is, you know, Bob's your teapot sort of thing. You know, it works on both sides. However, this symmetry, I haven't literally got no effort nor the time to actually do this myself. Like, make sure it's actually dead center in the middle. And for the time that for the difference it really makes, it's not really that much of an issue. Now, the reference image, looking at it, I actually think the reference image is ever so slightly, the model of the reference image is ever so slightly different to that of which I've got now, which could pose a bit of an issue. But not a huge enough issue that would make it might not be, but from my perspective, it does. Now, there's two ways I can go about doing this. I can either go to my properties and turn the grayscale to 0 and delete the color that I've already got, or what I could do is I could add another fill layer, change it to like white but off-white at the same time. And there's a reason why if I was going to, I'd do it off-white. But I'll get to that in a sec. I'll get to that later. And then just go black mask and then paint on it like you would do normally. Now, there's pros and cons to doing both. If you mess up this one, there's a chance that you can't go back enough to, like, save it. So, Substance Painter will only let you undo work up to a certain point. And beyond that, it's just it just won't do it. So you've then got to go and then redo everything and then just make sure it's all filled up to the point in which that you're happy with carrying on. However, whereas with this white mask, yes, you know, yes, you still have the problem if you can only undo it to a certain extent, but all you ruin is what you've done, and you can sort of like erase it or delete it like a little bit at a time, without interfering with anything else. Or you could just right click and click black mask. So let's say I just paint all this on and I don't really, you know, I think, oh, I don't really want that. Right click, click black mask again, it just reverts it back. So that's how I'm going to do it with a white mask just because that's how I would do it if I was doing that myself, but you can do it however which way you want to yourself. So looking at the reference image, it sort of goes, I've got to try and get it at the same angle. It goes from here and then it sort of comes down to just above the just above the bottom. Then it goes out like that and just goes out a bit more of an angle, I think. It looks like. I'm just trying to be as accurate as I possibly can with this. Then it goes down like that. See, that looks too much. If I go like this and then go down a bit further like that. Like that, and then I go down. See, this is what happens when I mean about saving. Now, that was easy. That was a piece of piss because it literally took a couple seconds. But bigger models like my Master Chief model take ages to save. It's ridiculous. So I'll put it down to about there, I think, and then I'm just going to go straight down. Now, there's a reason why I'm going straight down. That's because I can then go up. I can then go up and then go like this. So go like that, and go put it across a little bit more, and then go straight down there, like that. Now, again, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to go right up to here, and then I'm going to go straight down there, like that. So now what I can do is I'm going to, I think, choose the distance and how thick I want it to be. It looks like it just comes above to just before this little edge bit here. So it looks like it's about there. So if I then go up, again, it doesn't have to be exactly accurate. I'm actually going to make that a little bit thicker. So maybe just afterwards. So go like that, up to there, then go like that, then go up, because it just counts as of just about there. See, that doesn't look awful. Again, it could be better, but so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the exact same on this side. Again, I've got to be as accurate as I possibly can, but whilst, I mean, I've got a bit of like a symmetry thing on the other side that I can go for. Now, what you could actually do, well, I wouldn't advise you to do this, but you can change the actual symmetry and then change like Y, so it's actually going across, then move it up. But again, it will, what you draw on this side will actually draw the symmetry on the other side, so it's a bit of a nuisance. So I wouldn't actually advise you to do that. So what Substance Painter would actually a feature, maybe it is a feature and I haven't found it, but what Substance Painter would actually benefit from having is like a ruler, like that you can sit on your model and then you know where you're actually trying to aim for. That'd be interesting. That'd be actually pretty good. Also, another way you could actually do this, now that I think about it, is you could theoretically, I'm just making sure that is actually, oh no, it's a bit higher. There we go. What you could do actually theoretically is use your projection tool. If you make, let's say, Ahsoka's markings in Photoshop as like a texture like a color texture, what you could theoretically do is paste it onto this model and then projection it over. You could do that. Again, it'd be a bit time consuming and to actually make it, and you've also got to make sure that it actually sits exactly on the model perfectly. So doing this is probably a bit easier, but it's not very accurate. So if you want to make something more accurate, then you can do it that way. But it obviously is going to take a bit more time, but accuracy does take time. That is a bit too high. So I'm going to go like that and then go back down like that. See, that's a little bit better. So now what I'm going to do is I'm then going to go and make this a bit thicker. Go up to about there. So it's a bit easier with like doing it like this because we've actually got these things are actually a bit closer, so you can actually do it a bit easier. But whereas up here and like out here, it's a bit hard to see. You can also often see, like, you can even see here, like this bit is like, if I go like that and then go like that, it's still not even, but for the sake of what I'm trying to show you, I think it looks all right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fill this in and I'll be back once I've done. Right, so I filled that in. Again, it doesn't look too bad. It could be worse. Some I'm actually forgetting now that I actually think about it. And I'm looking back at my reference images. I've actually forgotten the squares. Now, can I do this? No, I can't do that. I was going to see if I could actually do it in polygons. I can't actually. So, no luck there. So, just do square, 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 square. Is that all right or is that too small? That's too small. So extend this out a little bit further, like that, then extend it out like that, extend it in like that, and then do that. Nice. Now let's go to properties. Let's just get rid of this little notch thing here. Again, this is where having that symmetry thing actually work would be an absolute godsend, because it would just be exactly the same and it would look so much better. Now I've done a bit of over color here, but I'll explain why I did that in a second. So again, let's just go like that, like that, like that, and then like that. Nice. And then I can just fill these in, easy as that. So yeah, so the reason why I did, oh God's sake, the reason why I did that overfill on the bottom of the helmet is because to get into crevices on models is the biggest pile of absolute nuisances that you can possibly actually find. It's not too bad when using the polygon tool, because that's what it's there for, is for getting into crevices, and the actual crevices are often polygons themselves. But as far as color is concerned, trying to get into crevices without actually over coloring is more trouble it's probably worth. You get less trouble out actually trying to color it yourself. So what I do a lot is, if I'm actually coloring something in, now if I've got actual lines I've got to color into, it's pretty easy because you just got to be steady. But if it's actually like in a crevice, like I've done on the bottom of this the black bit, I'll show you in a second. So down on here, what I can do is I can just get the polygon thing and then turn the grayscale to 0 and then just delete it, and it's as simple as that. The color still remains in the crevices, but I delete the color that's actually not needed. I did a bit over here as well, so it's not like if you want to be super accurate with it, you can, but again, like, you know, I say that I'm lazy, so anything that can actually cut a few corners, and these things sort of take enough time as it is anyway. Like, I think I've been recording for about an hour now. Again, the video's not going to be an hour long, I hope, anyway. So yeah, so it's any time that you can save, like, you know, doing things on Substance Painter and texturing models, it's not an easy job, and it's not, you know, even when you know what, like, I don't know everything about how to do things. I can't texture human faces to save my life. I do want to learn, but I'm used to texturing things like, you know, like armor and stuff like that, because it is relatively straightforward. Or alien face like Ahsoka and that, but there's a lot of things that I don't know, but anything that I can use to make my life even just that simplest bit more, and I'm not the best at Substance Painter by a long shot, but anything that I can use to make my life in this software any easier or quicker, I'm going to take it, because it's such a hard program to use anyway, and anything that can make your life easier, I'm just going to take it, you know. And I'm not, you know, it took me like the best part of like a year to learn this software. Like, I mean, if you look on my Sketchfab account, like everything that I've made, pretty much, I mean, I've got a couple more things I need to upload to it, but nearly everything I've ever textured on Substance Painter is on my Sketchfab account. So if you look at my Sketchfab account, you can see the progression from when I started with that stupid Master Chief texture that looks absolutely god awful, to where I am now with, let's say, doing this, or the Halo Infinite Master Chief model that I got and I textured myself. So it's like a before and after thing, but that's in the best part of like a year. I started in like April 2020 because I got bored doing stuff, especially in lockdown, and I just started learning. And you know, we're nearly in April. I'm recording this the 22nd of March, so nearly a month off of a year, I'm making stuff that I consider to be quite high quality. So anyway, so that's the main markings done. I can't really see any major markings else on my reference image that I'm missing. So now on to sort of like effects. Now there's a number of different effects that you can stick in to this. Now if you go, excuse me, what I do want to do, I actually want to put the normal and the roughness in. Again, it's not really any real need, but I'll show you now why I use sort of like an off-white color. It might not make any difference, but for the sake of things, I'm just going to show you now. Actually, did I stick the roughness into that? Yeah, I think that was right. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to make another white texture map, and I'm going to I've got to try and think of what I need to do. I'm going to add, so I need a black mask, I need effect, add generator, properties, and then they've got this metal edgeware. I've clicked metal edgeware. Now it looks a bit stupid at the moment, but what I can do is, I think if it's a bit of a bug with Substance Painter, I think if I move it up and then back down again, or if I move it down there, so essentially just basically as like metal scratches, but I think if I just play about with the properties a little bit and just turn the wearing down a bit, there we go, you can see it sort of like wears a bit. Turn the wear contrast down, you can see it a bit more. Turn it up, you don't see it so much, but you can see these little edges and these little grooves have got like a nice little metal edge wearing them. You can also see all that up here and like around the helmet and that. So like this bit here where we coloured, like as block colour it doesn't look that good, but now the bit metal edge, where if you like scratches and that in it, actually looks a whole lot better. So you can change that accordingly to how much you want. You know, that's the extreme, that's nothing, and then you can have it like sort of in the middle. That's extreme contrast, that's no contrast. So you just change it to how you want it. I think that looks pretty good. Got a couple of scratches on the top of the helmet. Now what I can also do is if I go into my color here, if I take out the roughness and then I go grunge, so I have to type, just get rid of that and type in grunge scratches. So we've got a number of different grunge scratches here. So this is just normal grunge scratches, then we've got dirty, and then we've got fine. So if we go dirty, what that then does is that then adds some like scratches into the actual paintwork, so it doesn't look so perfect anymore. and you can change it however much you want by adding like more less scratches and then just increase the contrast or decrease the contrast. I like having it at like 0. Now you don't necessarily see that too much, but it looks like you can sort of see it makes it look a little bit less perfect. You could do the same with the white. This white thing is and it's obviously it looks a bit perfect, so I don't really like that. So if I go back, get rid of that roughness, go grunge scratches, dirty, and then just change that. And again, you can't really see it, but that's the reason why I chose this colour to be a little bit off-white, so you could try and see it a little bit, even though you can't really. What you could also do, there's a lot of different ones that you can choose. You know, there's that one that you can choose, which probably actually works a little bit better. So if I just change the roughness of that a little bit, you can actually see the scratches a little bit better. But what I am going to do actually is I'm going to change that back to fine. Just turn the roughness up a little bit, so it looks a little bit imperfect. Now, what you can do, now this is going to look a bit weird. If I make another fill layer and I change this to like pure white, and then go black mask, and then I go to add generator, and then the generator, instead of using one of the pre-selected generators, because automatically it wants you to choose a generator, but what I can do is if I then type in grunge scratches again, I can make a generator out of the scratches. So if I then choose grunge scratches like that, and then turn the balance down right to this, and then turn the contrast up a little bit, what you can then do is, if I actually then click invert, what I can then do is I can then turn it down a bit and then actually have scratches on it, and then I can sort of just like turn the contrast up a little bit. Now, what the problem with that is you've then got this. I'm going to delete this in a second, but just to show you, this is actually what you can actually get it on the visor and on like the teeth where you don't necessarily want it. What you can do in that instance is you can then make another black mask and then put it on top, and then just fill in the visor so it actually won't show up on the visor and wherever else you may want it. Now again, the only issue with it doing it this way is that this is the thing, like the actual base color isn't actually strictly white. It's actually like a really stupid like gray, especially if I go into my color picker, and then I just go like choose, like hover over one of these, like it's not actually strictly like a white color, it's like a really grayish color. So whatever color you choose, you're going to get that color, like get it marking to look up anyway. So that's another problem with using something like this. So, you know, but again, you can use it if you want, so I'm going to leave it off for the time being. But anyway, I think that looks relatively okay for an end result. There's a couple of other things I could do, like I don't know, I could faff about with getting these the grunge scratch. So I'm going to see if I can actually get it to work with this one. So if I just click invert, that's seed, I don't want that. If I click invert and then I go all the way up to here again, you can see the scratches show up a bit and make him a bit like look as if it's been a bit more warm, but obviously you have got it on the visor. Now what I could do is you saw me use the polygon fill here when I was making color and texture in the helmet. Now you've got the triangle fill, you've got the polygon fill. Really, it doesn't make any difference. They both work the same way. You also got the mesh fill. So if I just make another fill layer, and I change it to black, let's say, argument's sake. If I then turn on the black mask and then I go to texture fill, it basically just fills up the entire model itself. Now, certain models will have their meshes separated in such a way where you can actually texture certain parts in certain ways, but Battlefront 2's models, in my experience, don't really do that, so there's not really much point, but certain models will, and it's actually quite useful. But anyway, so yeah, that would look pretty good, and that would look even better, because obviously then you can see even like just scratches on here, which actually looks like quite a nice effect. But you know, for the sake of the tutorial, you know, that looks pretty good, but obviously I'd have to take, the reference image might actually think about it now, continue on and just take out this little visor bit so it actually doesn't look that bad. But yeah, so that's the end of this little tutorial video here, and that's sort of the end result that we've got. If I just hide that a minute and then I go into my rendering, Now I will show you just a little quicker, like my settings for rendering. So we're just going to display, change the color to clear, because I don't like having an environment, I like having it as like clear color. That's all good. Now if I just pause this a minute. Now if I was to do it just as a rough render, I would have this set to minutes, and then I'll set this to 2. So 2 minutes at 1000 max sample iterations. I'd also change the viewport resolution from 1920 to by 1200 to 1920 by 1080. So it's actually a full 1080p resolution. If I was to do this for a final render, I would go 2000 iterations for 5 minutes. So, and then at 3840 by 2160, which is 4K. So get that increased quality in there for a final render. Obviously this model's not going to last, not going to take that too long to render, and it actually works quite well. Again, my Master Chief model, I set it for 5 minutes, it was going for about 15 because it was such a big model to render. So yeah, that's basically the basis of rendering. The VRay renderer isn't the best, but it does a good job, and it's very basic, but again, it does the job perfectly fine. So anyway, that's what we have time for in this video here. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. If you do have any questions on anything that I've done in this video, leave them in the comment section down below, or anything that I've missed, and I'll try my best to help you. But if you do have want me to show you, I am going to continue texturing models and doing them as time lapses, but I thought, you know, I want to show you in talk commentary form, in a tutorial form, how to go about actually texturing a model from scratch, and how I would go about doing it, because it's easy enough. I don't hate it because I think it looks pretty cool, but when I was learning how to do Substance Painter, I was looking at videos on how to do things, how to texture Star Wars models, but it was all time lapses. So which is annoying because I want to know how to do it, and time lapses you don't really learn a lot because it is going so quickly. So I want to do a video where I'm actually just talking to you about how to do it and what my processes are for doing certain things. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button for more awesome gaming, tutorial, whatever content, and I shall see you all later. Bye!